Hello.
Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of Tech Pixies. And Marianne Avery was going to fly solo on that one as my internet is having issues. Welcome to the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. This is your host, Joy Foster, and I'm joined today by Marianne Avery, who is our resident LinkedIn coach. And we're doing a series called Social Media Trends 2023. And so if you go to techpixies.com/social media trends, you'll be able to get all the trends that we're going to be releasing over the next 5 or so weeks. So Marianne, thank you for being here. You were a Tech Pixie. You graduated from our program. You went on and did some client work for Tech Pixies, and then now you are LinkedIn coach. So tell everyone a little bit about you, and so they can get to know you a little bit, and then we'll talk about what's trending in LinkedIn and some of the new features and some top tips for B2B marketing.
Lovely. Thanks, Joy. Yes, I'm glad I wasn't running solo. So yeah, I did cohort 13, which is a long time ago. I was trained by yourself and Sophie Bradley. So I'm 53, menopausal, and a new puppy mom, just like yourself. So my background is in the corporate world, predominantly in banking, customer experience, customer service, a little bit of sales. So my most recent experience is around Net Promoter Score, but I also do some associate work in a culture change consultancy. So I have lots of different balls that I'm juggling, I suppose, is the way to describe it. And then also LinkedIn as well for Tech Pixies.
Well, you are now our resident LinkedIn expert, and but it wasn't always that way. I want to talk about what brought you to Tech Pixies, and then we'll go into the LinkedIn trends. So what was your situation when you found Tech Pixies?
So I was recommended to Tech Pixies by two friends, actually. So Jill Shields, who did the Oxford course Face to Face with Beth, and then a really good friend of mine, Lucy Palmer. She had recently returned from Bahrain and wasn't quite sure what path to take. And Jill lived very close to Lucy, both of them actually in Whitney, just outside Oxford. So I put them in touch as kind of new mums. And Jill recommended Tech Pixies to Lucy. So Lucy did the course, and then she told me about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds exactly like what I need, because I'd just chosen, after almost 20 years, to take redundancy from Barclays. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was kind of floundering around. And then I really liked the combination of learning a new skill, but also the personal coaching and the brain priming side of it. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I need. And so I did the course. So I think I was one of the last face-to-face cohorts before you went online.
That was the last face-to-face cohort, although we're trying to create opportunities to come together face-to-face. It's always fun to be in real life, but we now have Tech Pixies all over the UK, 824 of them to be exact. So it's quite special. All right, let's talk about what you're really here to talk about, which is LinkedIn trends, because that's on everybody's minds as we go into a new year. There's always trends we need to be aware of. There's new features we need to be aware of. So what are the 2023 trends for LinkedIn?
Well, first of all, I was going to sort of start off by saying LinkedIn is kind of one of those platforms that hasn't really changed a lot over recent years, but they're definitely making a lot more changes. And I was doing a little bit of research over the last couple of days, because I would say it's normally a platform that you can go into, everything's in the same kind of place. It's not like Facebook or Instagram where every time you go in, there's something new or it's moved around. But LinkedIn's definitely picking up the pace. So in 2022, there were 100 plus changes to the platform. In 2021, there were just 40. Wow. And in 2020, there were 50. So it's definitely upping the pace in terms of the number of changes that are coming in. And I think it's one of those platforms, and I remember you always saying this in the training, but it's definitely one of those platforms that you can't just post and ghost. It's all about engagement. And before I get into the trends, there's a number of people saying morning, hello, is that recently LinkedIn have just topped the 900 million users worldwide. So there's lots of people like, when are they going to hit the billion? One of the things that they don't share is active users. So that's quite difficult to understand. But
okay, so LinkedIn has 900 million users, but they don't share the active users.
Yeah. So the most users are in the US, followed by India, China, Brazil, and then the UK with about 35-ish million. So yeah, there we go. So a couple of trends that I wanted to sort of share with everybody and just have a little bit of a chat with yourself about. I think one of the ones that's really interesting is company pages, because historically company pages has always been there, but you've never got as much traction or reach with company pages. But I always think they're a really good idea to have, because then it puts the logo into your personal profile. But a lot of people post a little bit of content but don't really use the company page as much as the personal page. But there's been a number of changes that have come in recently, and I think there's going to be more coming in the company space. So a couple of things that have happened recently is you've now got the bell feature. So you can go onto a company page, click the bell, and you'll get notified when that company page shares any content. A more recent one I think I got in the last couple of weeks is where you can follow from your company page, you can follow other company pages, which is really useful.
That was a big change that Facebook actually made. I know we're talking about LinkedIn, but one of the major changes Facebook made in the last year was making it so that your page has the ability to really interact and follow other pages and engage with other pages. I actually now can't go into Facebook without going basically through the page feed and then having to switch to the personal feed. So I think it's interesting what you're saying about company pages, because we've been teaching company pages for 8 years, but 8 years ago, it was like, why bother? But we still taught it anyway, because, when you've got the ability to create a page, and we taught it for exactly the same reason that you said, to have the logo on your profile, because a lot of people don't set up their page properly, and then they just have this sort of what we call the gray box of doom.
When you're looking at somebody's profile and they've just got the sort of the gray icon. Personally,
I call it the gray box of doom, but on LinkedIn, it's like the gray circle of doom. So we don't want the gray circle of doom. So you want everything branded and looking good, and the way you do that is set up a company page and then connect it to the you add that way.
One of the other things that has come in recently as well is that you can now comment as a company page. So even if you're on your personal profile, if you're looking in the feed, you've got a little icon next to your profile image, and you can click next to that if you have a company page, and you can select your company page, and then you can comment as your company page. So I think
so when you're going to comment, you can select who's commenting, you or your page. That's great.
Exactly. And I think that's a really interesting change, because then you can start to share your thought leadership as your company page. And then you can drive traffic either to your profile or to your company page. So that's a really interesting one. And then you can actually now, it came to your personal profile first, but you can now also natively schedule content from your company page as well. So anybody who's not quite sure what that is, when you click create a post on the bottom right hand corner, you've got a little clock icon. So if you click there, you can then schedule. So that's really interesting. That's come out to company pages.
Okay, well, that's interesting, because I knew you could pre-schedule on the personal side, but you're saying you can pre-schedule on the company side from the personal page?
No, from the company page you can do it. So you can do it from your personal profile. You can schedule to your personal profile, and from the company you can now also schedule. I've got that in the last.
Is that like in the last week?
Yeah, I had it because I've got a couple of company pages. So it was on one first before the other, a bit like Instagram where it rolls out. Because one of the things I found out recently from, I don't know if you follow Kevin D. Turner on LinkedIn, he's really good at sharing the latest updates, and I've learned from him recently that LinkedIn share things in blocks of 5. They roll out across different countries. So I actually got that one before some other people, which is unusual, because usually I get these things.
I definitely don't have that feature yet. But I do have that feature on the personal one.
So it works exactly the same on the company.
Okay, so what you're saying is, so just so everyone knows, because we're not being very visual here, there's a little clock down in the corner when you go to post something. You can now schedule your personal LinkedIn posts, which is brilliant. And we talk a lot about at Tech Pixies, the algorithm likes consistency. And so making sure you have content every single week is really important. But it's great that they're rolling it out on the business pages. Obviously, I don't have it on our business page yet. So you know, it is what it is. So you're saying it rolled out on one page and then it eventually on the others.
Yeah.
That's been the one missing thing that LinkedIn has not had, was the ability to pre-schedule, which meant you had to go through a third-party software.
Exactly.
And it is interesting watching what's happening in the third-party software world, because, you know, as the social media networks adapt the features that were so, you know, desired for from the third-party softwares, the question is whether or not people will switch to using third-party software.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when people are starting their social media journey, there's always lots of questions about, should I pay for a scheduling tool? And so the fact that now you can schedule on Twitter, you obviously Facebook, you've got your tool, Instagram, you have. I mean, I'm not hot on Pinterest or YouTube, so I don't know about those channels. But yeah, I think it's definitely changing it for people that you don't necessarily need to be.
Yeah, and I think just that consistency is really important. Debbie's watching right now, and she says, I guess you can't schedule shares though, and that's true. You can't schedule.
No, you only your own content. Yeah. But that might come. Who knows? So then a couple of other things on the company page, because I think it's really interesting, and it's great that Tech Pixies have always trained the company page, because a lot of people just don't have it. Is that you can also now do a newsletter from your company page, but you have to have 150 followers. So I think that's a really good thing, because I know people, you know, long form you can do articles, but now that you can do your newsletter, and on your personal profile, one of the changes that has come up is that if you've got a newsletter, it automatically adds that to your featured section so people can subscribe. So with all of, and also then you've got audio events as well, and live events, which obviously we're doing now. So there's definitely been a lot of investment in the company pages. So I think the one thing, if you only take this away, is definitely set up a company page.
Definitely set up a company page. And that's so true. Like we have been we've been doing our company page for 8 years, and you know, there were times it was just a real slog. What I would say is there's been one great feature about pages on for company pages on LinkedIn, which is you can invite people to like the page.
Yes.
Which this
you can do 250 a month.
200 people a month.
250. Yeah.
250. So if you're doing that, right? So if every month you're taking advantage of that, it's great, because, you know, that's 1,000 people every 4 months. And, you know, we're definitely not taking advantage of it, but we have built up to over 2,000 people who are connecting with us on our company page. And what's great is we get a lot of Tech Pixies onto LinkedIn who have never been on it. Or what we find is a lot of Tech Pixies, they might have, like, in 2008 got onto LinkedIn and then just sort of disappeared and never did anything.
Yeah, they created a page as part of the training and a profile, and then perhaps not. Yeah,
or years and years and years ago, before they even found Tech Pixies or before we found them, they'll have created a profile because they were thinking, oh, I need LinkedIn, but then, you know, they went and had kids, or they had to take care of an adult that was, you know, ill, or, you know, maybe they had to take some time off themselves, and they sort of like just park the LinkedIn profile and don't look at it or don't update it. And then when they want to go back to work, they've got to update it. So if I
think back to when I first set up a LinkedIn page, it was purely to do with work and looking for a job. It's massively changed. Anyway, so I've got a couple of other sort of features to keep an eye on. So AI. I haven't massively explored it myself, but there are so many people talking about ChatGPT. You can join audio events and live events with people talking about it. And I'm sure you'll be doing a podcast.
Is very interesting.
Yeah. But one of the things that I've recently discovered, because I know that you teach Canva, is that you can actually do magic write in Canva, which I've started to have a little play with. And this might make you tickle. So the thing that I used is I went into it, opened a doc and put, can you help me with, tips for puppy biting? And it's written me a whole thing, which actually was really quite good. So I think it's definitely something to explore. But AI is definitely another trend to learn about.
Let's talk about ChatGPT really quick, because I went and tested it as well, because if you are in the social media world, everyone is talking about it. And the reason they're talking about it is because it's a little bit like what Canva did when it changed the world for social media managers with introducing design. in an easy way. What
Yeah.
ChatGPT is doing is introducing copywriting in an easy way. So if you're not a designer, you've got Canva and you can become a designer. You're not going to be a designer that can create something from scratch, but you can take existing things and make existing designs, brand them up and make them look more professional than you would if you didn't have Canva, right? So what GPT does is it helps you to create better copy, but it also gives you ideas. And so I went on the other day and I was messaging my ads manager, and I was, because you can type things in like, write a Facebook ad aimed at middle-aged women and what they're afraid of with social media. And it'll just literally write an ad, and it'll just tell it'll do everything for you. So it's good with short text. It's not great with long text.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with long text, but I was quite impressed.
But what's great about about it is it can give you ideas. So, you might say, tell me the 5 things that middle-aged women are struggling with social media. And it'll give you 5, bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's great about that is there's your 5 social media content posts for the next 5 weeks. You just pull one bullet and then you expand on it. And that's what I love about it, because what it's doing is it's basically scraping all of the internet to give us this information. So it's taking this collective brain that that we all have as humans that we've already put on the internet, and it's scraping that and it's giving back the answers. But so I do think it's going to change things dramatically. But in terms of like, when you're lacking for ideas and you want an idea and you want something to build on, it is brilliant. And or if you're, like, let's say you've written an email or you've written a paragraph and you're like, I don't really like the way I've written it, I'd like that to be rewritten. It can rewrite it for you. I mean, it's things like that I think are just fascinating.
I know it's really interesting, because I follow a few copywriters on LinkedIn, and they will often share tips about how to write your copy. Don't necessarily worry about the title, or if you know what your call to action is, start with that and just work backwards. And I think ChatGPT is really going to help with that. So AI was my other trend to keep an eye on. One of the other ones is groups. I'm in a few LinkedIn groups, and one of the changes that's recently come out is very much like Facebook. When you join a group, you go through some questions, you get a welcome message, but they've just introduced where you can get a group admin can now welcome new members with a message up to 1,000 characters. So I think we could start to see some more in the group space. There's not been as many changes as there has been with the company page, but I think groups are definitely something to look at if you've got a business and you want to share tips. I think that's definitely an area to look at. So those are my
That's interesting, because I sort of, groups years ago were so spammy that people just stopped using them and stopped going to them. So it's interesting that they're again coming back. I mean, the history of LinkedIn is it was sold to Microsoft, and of course Microsoft is investing a lot in it, because they're wanting to make it one of, the premier sort of business to business network, really. So what other trends have you got for us?
Well, so the other one sort of grouped together is around audio and live events. I think events is definitely going to take off. I was going to do a little bit of research, but I didn't get around to it. But everybody was talking about Clubhouse during lockdown. I haven't heard anybody mention Clubhouse, and I might be doing it a bit of a disservice, other than when people are talking now about new features coming to LinkedIn events. Are like, oh, do you remember in Clubhouse when you could do this? Well, you can now do that in LinkedIn. I mean, I did join Clubhouse and sort of went on stage a few times and joined a few events, and it was easy to use. So I think that's a really good learning if you can make it easy to use. So one of the sort of changes that's happened on LinkedIn is now that if you're running an event, you can now have a moderator help you. So you're not trying to talk and let people in and monitor who's doing what. So I think that's a really good change. Okay, I don't know if you dabbled with Clubhouse, but
just to go to sort of tie the knot on that. So Clubhouse, yes, it's losing popularity. It's had an 80% drop in downloads year over year. It's something that came out during the pandemic. And really, I think what happened was people were tired of being on screens all the time with their cameras on. And so partly, I think that's where Clubhouse came, because it was audio
because I think
only.
People could go on it in their pajamas and and stuff, didn't they? It was
Yeah.
like easy.
Yeah, you could be in the bath on it, you know, you could, there was so
Well,
many different
yeah.
things you could do with it. So I think it was that, you know, it was a network that worked, but it's all audio, it's not visual. And we know that, you know, all these other networks are very visually stimulating. And so that's one of the challenges. But what you're saying is that LinkedIn has created, and this is what happens. So one network will piggyback off of another. So Reels on Instagram and Facebook exist because TikTok exists, right?
Yeah.
So as a network comes
Well,
out,
and
it's
you've got shorts, haven't you, on YouTube, which is
yeah,
interesting but it's the other direction. But yeah, it is interesting when you look at the different platforms and how things move along. So on LinkedIn, for example, now you can raise your hand to join an event, which is something that you can do in Clubhouse. So yeah,
our events on LinkedIn audio only.
you've got both, yes. So you can do a live event, so like we are, where you can see each other. So you can go live as yourself or with other people, but you can now also just do audio events, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, and that's actually
So
definitely definitely tied back into what Clubhouse did, and then they just rolled up the
and
feature.
interesting, the screen looks very similar to how it used to look on. Well, obviously, still looks on
they
Clubhouse,
probably
but I don't use it. Well, maybe, yes. Well, because it took off, didn't it? It was the new hot thing. So there's a couple of other features I was just going to sort of mention. So we've already talked about, I know I've focused on company pages. So we've got the in-platform scheduling. So the little clock icon, I can see that Debbie's saying that's really interesting. If you are operating as a business, one of the more recent features is a services page that you can add to your profile. And a recent change that has come in there is that you can add your pricing on there now. So you can either say contact me for pricing, or you can say starting from, and you put a price per hour. So that's something you may want to do. Not everybody does. I've got contact me, but that's just a personal preference. We've talked about newsletters already. There's a change on, or an improvement, I suppose, on job hunting. So if you're looking at a job on LinkedIn, there's now a pop-up that will appear that's basically like some radio buttons, and it will show you whether what you've got in your profile matches the job that you're looking at, which I think is really good, because if you're going to apply for it, you could make some tweaks to your profile, a bit like if you're applying for a role. I was always taught that I would tweak my CV so that it's more in tune to the role I'm applying for, rather than just being quite generic. So I thought that was quite an interesting change. And on the job hunting side, I just wanted to remind everybody that you can change the frame on your profile. So you can put on the green open to work, because I do often get questions from people about how do I do that. So you just do that where you're editing your profile, and you can add that open to work button on. Another one that's recently come on is captions. So a lot of people, when they record a video, they will embed their own captions. So depending on what tool you use, you could just do it straight on your iPhone. A lot of people use a tool called CapCut, but now you can toggle. So sorry, LinkedIn added auto captions, which a lot of people forgot about. So they'd put in their own video with their captions, and you get your LinkedIn auto captions. So it was looked very messy. But now there's the option when you upload, you can toggle auto captions on or off. So that's another recent change, what I think is just
well, and that's you know, people wonder why the captions are getting better. That's AI. That's all AI.
Yeah.
So the reason that captioning is getting better and better and better is because it's got so much data from translating over and over and over. No, this is great information. Anything else you want to add that we don't miss out, or
there's a couple of things around creating content I just wanted to sort of share, because I know if you're just starting out with LinkedIn, it can feel a little bit daunting. So there is something new. If you're just going from your mobile and creating content, you can use a template. So it's mainly for kind of like Word posts, but you can choose a template and you can choose your font, and so it's something you can do straight from your phone. So that's definitely something to look at. Even if you just want to start with sharing a quote or a testimonial or your thought of the day, that's a really good eye-catching way of getting some content out there. You can also now save draft, which is a good addition, because I don't know about you, sometimes I could be writing a post, and then this is before obviously you could schedule, and then I'd get interrupted and I'd come back to it. But now you can save draft. You can do that on your phone and directly if you're using your laptop. You can also repost content. Interesting, I was reading something the other day about that can affect your analytics and bring it down if you do too many reposts. So just be mindful of that.
Too much.
Yeah, so just make sure you go and check your analytics to see what impact that's having. And you can also carousel posts. So if you're a LinkedIn, an Instagram user, you'll be used to that you post lots of different images and it creates it as a carousel. Historically on LinkedIn, to do that, you would upload as a PDF, and then you can click through and you see the different arrows. But there's a recent change that if you've got creator mode turned on, and this is probably in more of an advanced feature, if you have creator mode, you can now also upload a mixture of stills and videos into a carousel, into single presentations. That's a new feature to look out for. So I'm conscious of time, but so that's my snapshot of changes and trends to keep an eye out.
Perfect. And before we go, I'd love for you to just give your top tips or your thoughts on B2B marketing, because LinkedIn is really the network that we point people to at Tech Pixies if they want to get into B2B, which is business to business versus business to consumer. And a lot of people complain about the fact that some of the other networks are very much business to consumer, which they are. They're, Facebook is designed to be around community and connection, and having, business ads on there, sometimes isn't something that people want to see. So where from what I can tell and from what I've learned about using LinkedIn, the in-mail features and the ability to connect with people and then engage with people and build up that rapport with people you don't know in the industry that you're in really helps a lot. And obviously setting up the company pages and sharing and having the newsletter, all those things are really good things. Do you have any other top tips if someone's wanting to use LinkedIn as a business to business platform?
I think a couple of things in addition to that. So definitely make sure you've got your company page, you're commenting as your company. Use the power of LinkedIn to search for your ideal customers. So do some work and work out what your ideal customers are, and think about SEO. What words are they going to have in their profiles? What are they going to be using in their content? Search for that. You can have premium and do emails, but you can also, you don't need to pay. You can connect and you can follow people and use the power of commenting as your business page.
And when you connect with someone you don't know, always add a note.
Always personalize it, and always read that person's profile, because one of the things, because I would suggest you follow the company page, but also connect with key individuals in that company and start having that dialogue, and always read their profile, because a lot of people, if you notice, will have a keyword that they put in their profile that will say, if you want to connect with me, mention this word. And that is a really good way of starting that dialogue. And don't always think it needs to be public in LinkedIn. You can start having a dialogue in DMs. Don't be spammy though. It needs to be relevant. And you can start building that rapport by sharing content with them, or have you seen this? Networking as well, because you can attend events. So look out for businesses that you want to work with that are hosting or attending events. Just treat it like it is a face-to-face interaction, and just be yourself and be really key about what you are selling and how it's going to help them. What is your USP? Why would they want to work with you over anybody else?
Yeah. And it's really, and that always goes back to something we teach, which is it's actually in some ways not about you, it's about them. What do they need and how does your USP match?
Yeah, it's not about you, it's about them. What do they need? Exactly.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, Tech Pixies is the only social media training company in as far as I know, definitely the UK, but possibly the world, that focuses as much on the social media networks as it does on the mental barriers and blocks that people have when they go to use them, because that's what we know people really need, is to get through those barriers and blocks. Well, I so appreciate you, Marianne. How can people find you if they want to connect with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn as Marianne Avery. You can find me as Socially Maz, and you can find me at Flint Change. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. I am on Facebook, but I'm not as active on Facebook. My main channels are probably LinkedIn and Twitter, with the occasional dalliance on Instagram.
Well, we're delighted that you are our resident LinkedIn coach, and looking forward to the social media triage call on Thursday to hear how that goes. And really,
I was just going to say, yeah, if you've got a question, because I can see there's a few people commenting, if you've got a question, do make sure you pop it on the question vault.
Yeah. So our social media accelerator students and our social media management certification students have the opportunity to ask the expert a question to get a hot seat. And that happens on Thursdays. So if you are interested in our programs, definitely send us an email at support@techpixies.com, and we'll help point you in the right direction. All right. Thank you so much, Marianne. And there is, just so people know, on our website, techpixies.com/free resources, you can grab a Get Started on LinkedIn guide. So if you want to get yourself going on LinkedIn, you can grab that guide from our free resources page. And also the social media trends will be up very soon, techpixies.com/social media trends, and you'll be able to get all the trends once we've released them all in the next few weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.